Hello, hello. Should be coming through. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to give it a couple minutes here. Today is Saturday. It is Crash Course Vibration, my favorite day of the month. There we are. Okay, I am going to share this. If you can bear with me for a second. And I can't spell. Perfect. All right. And I know I have a typo in my share for those of you that are seeing that. Well, thank you for joining me today. For those that are, this is the second installation of the vibration plate crash course. I'm going to try doing this the first Saturday of every month, at least for the next few months. We'll see what happens once we get a little bit closer to summer. But there's so many of you that just need assistance or guidance, or maybe you've had a medical setback, or maybe you overdid it the first time you use it, or maybe you're too afraid and you have yet to use it. So today I'm going to go through just some very simple things. There is no best, better, ideal setting. It's understanding the different plates and the way that they move. Different movements have different ways of using them, and some pros, some cons. There's no such thing as a bad machine, but they're just like going to the gym. There are lots of different ways that perhaps we overdo it, or we struggle with where to start and how to align the goals of what we're trying to accomplish in the first place. So today we're going to talk about just general use and getting started. Whether you are a training athlete, whether you are coming from a place of being inactive. Notice I'm ditching my shoes. This is a new stimulation. There's things that a vibration plate does passively. A term you'll hear me talk about today, I'm blinding myself with my lights, I just need to turn things down a bit, is passive benefits. So one of the big appeals of a vibration plate is passively the way that they can offer just this supercharged turbo boost of lymph and circulation to your system. And, after 20, 30, 40 years of marketing and Amazon and eBay, some of the research and the science and how you use the plates from the research and translate them to your experience at home, we get hung up on certain aspects, and there is never one aspect. So just like going to the gym, there's lots of different ways that you can get into shape. Maybe you're training for something specifically. Maybe you're there to lose weight or increase bone density. Maybe you're just being proactive and want to be active. A vibration plate can suit a couple more things than the gym. Any floor-based exercise that you do on a vibration on the floor can be done on a vibration plate. But for those of you that are on the opposite end of the spectrum, the chronic conditions, the chronic issues, you've digressed to a point, or you've had an injury, or you've developed a condition where traditional exercise just ain't happening for whatever reason. So a vibration plate accelerates the benefits of those floor-based exercises, giving you faster results with a little bit less time and effort on your part. All the while, regardless of what you're doing on the plate, you're getting those forever benefits: the lymph, the circulation. Another big one, and a lot of people, you're going to go, what? Bone density is a passive benefit. Bone density is a long-term benefit, but it is a benefit that is accomplished by you bearing your mask or partially bearing your mask regularly. It's not a program. It's not a setting. I have visuals when we get into that part today. So what I'm going to do is do a very little demo, and then we're going to get into some questions at the end of today's discussion. So if you want to join me with your plate, look at my cup sitting there. This is my new cup, stressed, blessed, and coffee obsessed. Yes, I am. I'm going to get that out of camera. And what I invite you to do, if you are dealing, I mentioned in the sessions, and if you've ever seen me do any of my sessions, very often using a bar height stool is a good idea to start with, just to get a feel for the plate, how it moves, how it feels to you. But there's also other things like, arthritis and swollen joints and fatigue and all these other things that we deal with. So a bar height stool is a good tool if you're going to be listening to me ramble for the next 15 to 20 minutes. But perhaps, you're not prepared yet to stand and bear your weight, or perhaps you're a little bit fearful, or maybe you're dealing with an injury, or you're recovering from something. So using a bar height stool, and I always get lots of questions about the height of my stool. This is hydraulic, it's adjustable, it swivels, because I do different things with different people on plates. But ideally, you want to be at a good 90-degree angle with the legs. You don't want to be downhill like you're sitting in some slumpy old sofa. So if you are lacking mobility, the machine was on and I turned it off. I'm trying to be all smooth on camera. If you're lacking mobility, you may want to be, think of those elevated recliners where they, help you get out a little bit first. Maybe you want to be a little bit higher than 90 degree, so you got a little less, oomph to get up out of your chair. But sitting in your chair is a very easy way to get through the demo portion and the listening to the Debby. So we're going to get to questions like how long and what setting and all those things. But I hope if you listen, give me 5-10 minutes to just get through my basics. A lot of those questions will be self-answered, because many of the questions that people commonly ask, the how long, the how often, the what do I do on it? Can I just stand? Can I sit on it? Are related to understanding how to use the settings that your plate offers. So we're going to start first with different movement types. Today I'm on a Rumblex Plus 4D. 4D means 4 different ways. So it moves, there's 3 different movements. The first movement, the primary movement, the main movement of these machines decades and decades ago started with a medical grade oscillating vibration plate that I've been fortunate enough to play with lots in my time. And it oscillating has a few different terms. It means teeter-totter. It mimics how we walk, but with less impact. And on the really slow speeds, levels, frequencies, we'll get into that here shortly too. It's very choppy. It's very wobbly. You can feel everything shaking around. For the purposes of this demo, I want you to understand oscillating. It's going to sound like it's harder to use by the time I'm done this. It's not harder to use, but there's more things that you can control and manipulate to customize your experience and modify based on what you're dealing with. So lesson number 1, before we get into speeds or times or positions or anything, is amplitude. Everybody talks about frequency. Oh, how do I set my machine for 40 hertz? I must have answered that 10 times yesterday. Or how do I set it for bone density? The first lesson is understanding there's 2 things that you control. The intensity, or how strong the movement feels, is different in different movement types. And in oscillating, what's hard to wrap our heads around as new users is you are in control of 2 things. So the first thing that you're in charge of, amplitude, how much you're moving. On a teeter-totter, if we go wider, we're moving more, and you can feel the change in movement on your legs. If you bring them closer to the center, you're reducing it, you're moving it. Logically, if we think back to when we're 5 and 6 on a playground, we know this. But when we get on a vibration plate, somewhere over the last 20, 30 years, where marketing and everything else has gotten in the way, we've seen them at trade shows, there's this mentality that we have to stand at the outer edges of our plate, and we're going to get more benefit because it feels like we are and shaking more. But what you're exposing yourself to is the max amount of impact. How much movement a plate has is not a universal thing. Depends on the size of the machine, different brands. But on oscillating plates, typically speaking, you're moving anywhere from about 6 to 14 millimeters. You're moving quite a bit of distance if you're on that outside edge. I want you to think more functionally. If you're sitting in the chair with me today because you have chronic issues, or you're getting off the sofa for the first time in 20 years, reduce the amplitude. I want you to understand that in oscillating, why everybody struggles with it and why they find it so darn complicated to understand is they think we have to go here. And if you look at a model like I have here, where it's got the little pictures, the walk, the guys, jogging almost, and then out here it's like flat out run. If you struggle to walk to your car and back or to the kitchen and back, you're probably not going for a jog anytime soon. So why would you logically place your feet as wide as possible? I say this slightly sarcastically because we don't know. And we're trying to make up for the last 20, 30 years of not getting it done. So what I don't want you to do when I see comments like my knees hurt, my back hurt, I was itchy and broke out in hives, it tells me that you've overdone something, gone too long, used too much weight on the machines. But 9 times out of 10, it's standing too wide. And most of these machines come with a preset time of 10 to 15 minutes. And right off the bat, because it does, in many cases, it feels pretty darn good when you're on it, especially if you're dealing with, stagnant lymph and poor circulation. Things get moving. The feet start getting warm. If you've got neuropathy, sensitivity, things start improving on the sensation factor. So you think, what's 10 minutes? Well, this is a device that accelerates the effects of traditional floor-based exercises. If you're not exercising regularly on the floor for 10 minutes, why would you even try on a vibration plate? So if you're dealing with chronic symptoms, you're afraid, you're just getting started, think functional, keep the feet about hip width apart, and just try it for 2 to 3, maybe 4 or 5 minutes, a couple times or 3 times the first day. If you're dealing with chronic symptoms, think symptom management long before you think fitness. It'll come, or it'll be a separate session, but when you're using the plate, you don't have to do the same thing every time. You don't have to go 10 minutes every time. It's easier to think that you just set it and forget it, twice a day for the next 30 days, but this is not something I can prescribe a universal thing for everybody. It really does depend on who you are and what your goals are long term. So before we go faster, let's make sure those feet are hip width apart. We're going to crank this puppy up to a mid speed. And as we're going to mid speed, I've just set mine for 30. My top speed in oscillating, I'm doing this manually. I just want you to understand how this works. Then you can experiment all you want. And you'll be less frustrated. You'll have more pleasant of an experience because you'll understand how to customize it for you and how it feels at the time or for the position that you're doing. So with the feet closer at 30, it's quite a bit smoother. It's less choppy. It's more soothing. So again, symptom management, instinctively, we don't think fast or faster, but this isn't a treadmill. This is movements, and really slow the really slow oscillating speeds tend to be more like a Bosu ball. They're balanced and they're destabilizing, and they're good if you're challenging and you're training for those things. But if you have poor balance, if you lack stability, if there's a risk of you falling, the last thing I want to do is destabilize you. And the last thing you would probably use to improve your balance is a Bosu ball. It's too much. So bring it up, bring the feet closer. Sometimes balance is related to poor circulation, poor sensitivity. So let's get some life in those legs and get our systems working for a good week or maybe 2 before we get to some structure and what do I do for 10 minutes 3 times a week. I hope that makes sense. So now that we're going a little faster, it gets kind of boring just sitting here. So, there's all these seated things that you can see on the internet, the seated chair yoga. Maybe you've got some exercises, you're supposed to be doing now anyways, seated. I do some stretches, I might get into my sciatic. If you are limited to sitting, before I get to some other lessons, and again, mid-speed is what I'm going to stick with, and hip width apart for the rest of the demo. If at any time it's scary, it's too much action, you've had enough, you can turn it off. You don't have to keep going just because you have time left, but try bringing your feet closer. You'll find it's just soothing, more like a foot massager. You don't have to be out here all the time. A lot of times that poor experience is those wide feet, so bring them closer. For those of you that are comfortable and want a little bit more upper body action, but you're limited to sitting, you can, by adding your hands to your knees, locking up those arms, or if you want a little bit more intensity and range of motion allows, lean over further and add the elbows to the knees. You can sit here and surf Facebook all day long. This is a great way just to get some more total body lymph. I nag my lymphedema and my lipedema community about prepping the lymph, and it's a hassle having to do all these things for self-care if you're one of those people. So on a lazy day with your feet sitting on the plate, do your lymph prep. Start at the neck, then to the collarbone, then to the abs, then to the groin, then to the back of the knees. If you lack range of motion, sometimes you're doing the prep work, or perhaps you're doing dry brushing. For those of you that are doing lymphatic work specifically, by adding this little tool that boosts the lymph and the circulation, you don't need to do it for as long. And if you are dealing with something lymphatic related, circulation related, using it more often is the best way, because when you move, lymph moves. But detoxification is kind of another common question that I get. The itch, the pimples, the thirstiness, the pooping, the peeing, many ways that our body expedites waste. And what the plate does is it makes your body effective at doing its job of detoxifying. So make sure you're hydrated. All those common sense things that you would do with traditional activities or therapies, it just happens quicker on a vibration plate. 2-3 minutes, all of a sudden you're just dying for thirst like I am. So I'm going to run out of time here shortly because I've already rambled 10 minutes. I'm going to have some of my caffeine. For those of you that are ready to stand, and I'm not going into a whole workout today, but I'm going to give those of you that are hopeful and have benefits such as weight loss, toning, maybe you're trying to improve bone density, maybe you've gotten physical in your work and you need to build up some strength and stability and some stamina. Standing on the plate isn't easy for everybody. If you're dealing with poor mobility, if you've got a fear or at risk of falling, give yourself something to hang on to. Perhaps you have a rail or a ladder. Like I use this with a lot of my pediatric work. The stool, dual purpose. Okay. So maybe you're doing some sitting and you're doing some standing. The goal isn't, do it all this way or that way or my way or their way. I want you to be comfortable navigating the controls so that you experiment and understand what feels good to you and what gives you energy versus takes it away and so forth. So the stool from sitting is also, it gives you something to hang on to. I want you hanging on for stability, but not for dear life. If you're dealing with a plate style that the Rhythm is an example that has handles, or you've got an older different brand machine with an upright handle, people have a tendency to hang on and go beyond range of motion that you would normally be able not to do if you weren't hanging on to something. So don't go beyond your range of motion. It's not about just like going longer. It's not like being mean as possible. Just get used to how it feels standing before you start applying any more challenge to the equation. I will show you how to challenge yourself though. So when you're standing, the number one common kind of thing I hear when I'm standing is my nose tickles, my ears tickle, I got vertigo, I was nauseous. Symptoms that you experience post-exercise or post-therapy aren't necessarily related to one thing. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 things. nausea, headaches, those type of things can be detox related. But in my experience, it's this. We're standing really tall. You can hear the change in my voice. The legs are locked or maybe just undone. It's easier to stand than bend, just like the floor. This is easier than this. So bend slightly and you'll feel 90% of it leaves the head and the neck. Stand tall. So if at any time you're on this thing and it feels too much in the earlobes or your nose hairs are flying around, bend the knees a little bit. Body's lazy. It's always going to try a way to make things easier for you. It doesn't want to work hard. And if your goals are weight loss, bone density, those types of things, you could go through the motions and just stand here and flip through your programs, and you're going to see some benefits. But long term, push yourself slightly just by squatting a little bit. I'm just doing it like a mid squat. The chair now serves, if Debbie overdoes it or if she goes beyond her range of motion, she can now save her butt and just sit down upon it. So it's a little bit of a safety thing. But when you begin to squat, especially if you're dealing with inflammation, arthritic joints, anything that you may have to complain about that stops you from going to the gym now, moving is often what irritates joints and inflammation more than the plate and the position that you're doing on it itself. And then you're doing it for 10 minutes with your feet as wide as possible. Okay, so I'm hoping some of this makes sense. So keep those feet hip width apart, just like you're starting to get ready to sit in a chair, and just hold still. And by holding still and not moving up and down, you can kind of feel where the intensity is hitting you. I'm going too slow. I want to speed it up. I forgot to reset it. So back up to 30. And what you'll feel if you're dealing with deficiencies, if you have, a weak side or you're recovering from something, you can really feel where the action is being picked up. If it's the quads, if it's the glutes. If you're feeling it too much down the shin and the top of the foot, remember I said earlier that the body likes to cheat. Okay, so the next way it cheats, now that you've listened to me and you're squatting and you're not standing up, what happens is the body now tries shifting the weight off the heel. The heel is the point of contact. That's what moves you. So if your heels are close, you're not moving as much. If your heels are wide, okay, if you were to come up into a calf raise, you feel your calves moving a little bit and your ankles flexing, but there's no movement up beyond the calves. As soon as that heel hits the plate, you can try this at home where you've got one foot up and you'll feel. Sometimes people say, oh, this side's moving way more than that side. And without realizing, all you're doing is your feet are the same distance apart, but you've got that old football injury and your body's shifting a little weight and putting the mass on the good leg and making it do all the work versus the other leg. So you'll notice that I have my repurposed closet mirrors in front of me. And even me, I've been doing this 20 years. There's days where I don't listen to my body and I don't do what I'm supposed to do, or I'm talking on the phone or whatever. And without even realizing, I shift over and I wonder the next day, why is this side so sore? Oh, it was doing all the work. So sometimes I like the mirror because I can keep a good eye on my alignment and make sure that I'm not shifting one way or the other. You can spend $10-15 at Walmart or your local department store and get one of those mirrors that you get cheap, those long skinny ones for the back of the door, and just set it on the floor in front of your workstation. It's a great way to just keep alignment while you're keep an eye on it anyways. So if the goals were weight loss, the goal for me as a plus 50 woman, metabolism's gone like here. So if weight loss is the goal, try and get what I call a couple of mean reps. So stand up, maybe warm up for a little bit if you're comfortable. Maybe you're sitting for a minute or two. You don't have to do a big 15-20 minute workout. It's understanding what you got to do moves wise to accomplish the goals you're trying to achieve. So, you can do a big elaborate workout and program. For me, I'm busy. I got kids. I homeschool. I do 2 to 3 mean squats first thing in the morning. I elevate my metabolism. I'm not going so long on the machine that I deplete the energy that I do have. And for me, you know, once I've maybe done a squat or two, maybe I move. But maybe if my knee's bugging me today, I don't. You know, listen to your body and what it's telling you. And if you're pushing the muscles, you're pushing the bones. The bones, if you're just standing there, you know, going through the motion, you know, I almost bet that long term you're not going to lose bone density, but maybe you're maintaining more than gaining. So if you can push, maybe weight loss isn't the goal, but if you could push, the muscles are pulling on the bones in a different fashion like this. So what's happening is if the bones are being worked harder, they're being stressed out more, they got to lay down new osteoblasts and strengthen the bones to support the position that you're doing. Even better. Oh no, I forgot to adjust this. Okay, you really want to get her done. If time is short, you know, and maybe right now you lack range of motion or the ability to squat deeper. So add some weights. You're only limited by your imagination and your range of motion. So, you know, if you lack range or you know, you're dealing with something where you can't add lots of weight yet or range to your exercises, add some mass. You know, nothing's saying you have to move up and down. Perhaps if you're working upper body, you know, there's lots of different ways. The plate is simply an environment that makes what you're doing on it more effective in less time. I picked up too much weight for that. I've been moving machines around all day trying to get things pretty here. So for those of you that are maybe in between, and this is my last little variation I'm going to show you before we get to questions, and I'm going to talk about time here shortly. Maybe I'm comfortable standing. I'm okay to bear weight. I'm not dealing with a condition where I have to modify and reduce my body weight. A lot of times when people say, oh, I can't use a machine because I'm not able to bear weight, you know, there's lots of ways you can use a plate other than just standing on it, okay? So let's say, I don't know, you've had an injury on one side, and, you know, when you've had an injury or a surgery on one side, the other side's doing extra work anyways. So there's a couple, oh, I don't know why I put my shoes on. You could do something like a one-legged exercise where you're this is the leg that maybe you've had some work on and you want to get some circulation going and some lymphatic movement, but you're just not yet comfortable standing and putting body weight on that. If you're comfortable standing on the plate and the balance is okay, or perhaps you had experience using your plate before the injury or the surgery, that makes a big difference. If you're looking at using a plate for medical reasons, having prior experience using a plate really goes a long way in understanding, you know, it's really nothing to be afraid of. It's understanding how to modify for how you're feeling at that moment in time. So another way that you can modify, you know, if you are injured on one side and one side's doing all the work, you know, in this example, let's say the left side, you know, you've been walking around the house like this, or you're on crutches, you know, this is the one that's affected. If you're comfortable and the balance is there, you know, that side that's doing all the work, I bet you could use some special attention. So, you know, if you can raise or keep the affected side off the plate, as long as it's not the hip or, you know, you had something in the back, these are all nuances to discuss with your care providers. Maybe you have atrophy or maybe you're stronger on one side and the other side is very weak, so you can only handle a little, you know, so maybe you start like this and then, you know, you shift the weight over. So we're exposing it a little bit, but I've got 95% of my body weight on the other side. This is just, think of it like a rudder or for balance. And the last little variation I want to show you is the opposite, is for head sensitivities. For those of you, you know, you've been so kind as to try everything that I've gone through today. I'd be here 5 hours if I got into detail on everything you could do on a plate, but I want to give you some basics to feel comfortable in experimenting with. This is Life Pro's Aeroflex Step. And for those of you that are perhaps, I don't know, maybe you've had a recent stroke, or you know, you have chronic migraines, or you've had some eye or some teeth or some ear surgery. And it's not that you don't mind the head vibes. They aren't harmful. They just take some getting used to. So you can, what the step is awesome for is same thing we were kind of just doing, but one side is exposed to the stimulation of the movement. The other side is on dry land. This is a great one for you therapists or care providers out there where you're working with someone. You know, this is, depending on the model that you have, this is a 6, maybe 7-inch step up onto the plate. The step gives you more real estate the same height as the plate, so you can get more functional in your stuff that you're doing on the plate. So for those of us that maybe this is the surgery side or the weak side, and you're okay bearing weight, we've got the good leg or the strong leg on the plate. We can do our squats if we like. What this also does by association is if you shift just a 1/2 inch this way, no head vibes at all. You shift a 1/2 inch this way, a little bit more head vibes. So it's also something if you are dealing with, like I say, head sensitivities and you just don't want the movement, you can expose this side in this fashion and keep one leg on something solid that's the same height. Maybe you've got a step or footstool. You can also do this one, what's called transverse. So one of the unique features about oscillating movement is it mimics walking, and balance is one of those perpetual or every time benefits. You know, you're always going to leave with more balance than when you started. It's just your body's always stabilizing itself while it's on this plate. For those of you that have a tendency, sometimes if you're dealing with different vertigos or just balance related issues, sometimes you're dizzy this way and sometimes you're dizzy this way, and sometimes you just want to mix it up. By putting it this way, start with your heel in the middle. Again, the heel drives the movement. So if you're way back here, you're out at the outer edge and it feels like it's going to throw you this way. If you put your foot this way, it feels like it's going to throw you backwards this way. But it's just a change of scenery. It's a different way to do some balance training without actually doing balance exercises where, you know, maybe there is that fear of falling or you're just not comfortable pushing yourself to that degree, challenging and destabilizing yourself yet. My favorite way to boost balance and stability is you know, any move that you feel comfortable doing, but while you're doing it, just slightly close the eyes for intervals of 3 to 5 seconds. Open up the eyes, close the eyes. And you can just add something like that even to whatever you're doing, washing the dishes, going to the bathroom, just by closing the eyes periodically. That proprioception, that body awareness is forced to kick in. And we're so reliant on our sight that sometimes, you know, if we close our eyes, that's when the fall occurs, because we don't think about spending time training with our eyes closed. And it's a good cognitive exercise just to be practicing. So those are a few variations. For those of you that have time and frequency questions, I'm just going to cover this very briefly. Common question, how long? You know, it depends, what you're trying to accomplish in using the plate, and it depends on the body that you're working with when you're getting started. So if I were to ask you, how long can you go for a walk, or how long can you go for a run? Everybody's going to have a different answer, and a walk in itself is a different level of effort than a run. So how often can you use the plate? I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I need a little more intel. Again, if I had to break it into 2 categories, there's the fitness, the exercise, that kind of the wellness kind of side of it. And then there's also a huge medical symptom management side. So you might be using it for both reasons, but what the session looks like is going to be very different. So the time answer, how long, if you're using it for symptom management, you know, maybe your back's bugging you and you just want to have a fix as soon as you walk in the door after you've been using it all day. Or perhaps you have restless leg and you want to just do a session before you go to bed. Those of you that are just doing the 10 minutes and aren't having issues, that's absolutely fantastic. My experience with chronic symptoms is the opposite. We're overdoing it. It feels so good at the time. And it may not be day 1 or 2 or 3, but eventually you start increasing in swelling, or you start becoming exhilarated, and you sometimes you feel like you're having the opposite effects of what you were trying to accomplish. No different than over exercise. The itchiness. I had a question this morning about the itchiness. That's absolutely related to the increase in lymph and circulation, detoxification as well. If it is severe, you do not have, this isn't something that you should have to suck up and do. I want it to be a pleasant experience. And if you individually Some people don't experience an itch at all. Some people are fine right off the bat. If you have sluggish lymphatic issues of any kind, poor circulation, you should be responsible and make sure that your body is in a position to accept all this stimulation. You don't just get on this thing for 10 minutes when you just had, vein surgery. So venous insufficiency, blood clots, any conditions where you are being advised right now, short duration, high intensity, same rules apply. 10 minutes is not short on a vibration plate. It is long. It is the max run time. Try 2 to 3 minutes, but more often. So if you're dealing with symptoms, you're coming from a place of poor health, I would by far prefer see, if your lifestyle allows, a couple, 3 times throughout the day as those symptoms present. Let those drive, when you need it. The ankles are swelling, the back's bugging you. And keep it brief. And over time, what you'll notice is you don't need to use it as often, and you'll be able to tolerate longer durations. If fitness is the goal, and you're the type of person that likes a half, 3/4 of an hour workout, it's absolutely very much your preference. I like to break my workouts into body parts. So as I presented earlier, I like doing my legs in the morning. Arms, I do not do every day. I do them more often when it's tank top season. Absolutely, I do. But for neck tension, maybe my shoulder blades bugging me, I do use it for feel good exercises as well. But 2 to 3 minutes here and there. If it's fitness, I like HIIT style training. So in my squats, in my push-ups, I don't like forearms on the machine. I do planks the other way around. I'm trying to kill myself and be done within a minute. And do multiple reps, or maybe I'm doing a circuit of 3 or 4 different exercises. So for those of you who exercise now, the goal is to push to fatigue. Many of you also believe that you just stand here and this machine's going to do all the work, and for recovery and warm up and all those things. Yeah, that's awesome. But if you're training, if you want to have fitness benefits, gains, just like on the floor, if you're trying to bulk up, you may need to add mass. Vibration as far as upper body is a good push exercise, not so much pull. So I like maybe doing some weights while I'm doing my squats, and then maybe I do some push-ups to finish things off in the end. Everybody that trains at a gym or does floor-based exercises now, you tend to have a few moves that you like doing regularly, or they work for you. On a vibration plate, where you'll excel in your fitness is when the technique is there. So the better your positions, your breathing, your posture, all these little nuances, the quicker you're going to fatigue. It's not about wide feet, faster all the time. Mix those speeds up. Keep the body confused and guessing, so it's forced to change and adapt to the demands of what you're doing that day. And if you do enjoy longer, more drawn out sessions, maybe you're doing a bit of a warm up, and then you're doing some work, and then you're doing some recovery because that's what your schedule allows. How you use a plate for fitness versus feel good is a different path. And as I said, for everybody in general, just give your body a week or 2 to get used to this new stimulus. As your systems improve, your blood's flowing, your range of motion's improving, your balance is better, all these short-term ongoing benefits. If you feel better doing exercises and you're seeing progressions on a short-term basis, it tends to be a lot of motivation to keep you going for some of the long-term stuff. It's very dry in here today. I need some coffee. So I would like to see what questions you have now for me at this point in the occasion. And again, I can't cover every 10,000 million things that you'd ever do on a vibration plate. If there was a book of what exercises you could do on a vibration plate, it would be about this thick, because it would be every exercise, stretch, and all the massage stuff that you can do on it. So as I always say, you're only limited by your imagination and your range of motion. If you need a program, if you're looking for, something specific, think body types, goals. Are you looking to lose 10, 20, 50, 60 pounds? Are you looking to gain strength? Try not to get yourself into the label game and associated with a condition that if you're dealing with something, whether it's diabetes, whether it's lymphedema, there is no best setting or program. There are certain exercises that might be more ideal for certain conditions. but it is still very much an individual you thing. Just because you have MS and fibromyalgia or Hashimoto's doesn't mean that, you know, you're not a woman or a man that had other goals before you had a diagnosis. So sometimes when you're dealing with conditions and other symptoms that are associated with conditions, maybe you don't have a diagnosis, but you know you got some symptoms going on. The self-care is uber awesome on a vibration plate, because you can get the self-care and the benefits of that lymph circulation, the cognitive, the better mental, physical effects of it. But you're also, you know, keeping the muscle strong, the bones strong, you as an individual separate to that condition. So you can kind of do, you know, the self-care and the exercise at the same time. You know, self-care is a drag. And for some of you, it can be this long, extensive process. And the last thing you want me to tell you is that now you got to do another 15 minutes and do your work. There's lots of ways that while doing the exercises on a vibration plate or the stretches or whatever it is you're supposed to be doing regularly, as I said, you can dry brush while you're on it. You can use your massage gun while you're on it. You can incorporate your red light therapies while you're on it. Get creative. And if time and effectiveness is what you're looking for, there's lots of ways you can combine what a vibration plate offers you over any other tool in their lineup is the benefits of that weight bearing exercise. Same as the ellipticals, the treadmills. When you're bearing your mass passively, you're going to get the bone density. If you want strength, toning, other benefits, you know, sometimes you may want some assistance from a trainer, or look up some of the sessions in the group here for more goal specific type sessions. So let's get to questions. I want to see who's here. I see that Pamela. Hi, Pamela. Nice to see you. Nancy is here. Hello, Roosevelt. What a great name. You don't hear that often enough. I see Gail. I see Lynn. I see Paula. Sometimes too much info. I'm rambling. So I would like to invite, if any of you do have questions, now is the time. If there's anything at all you would rather watch later and not ask in front of everybody and Debbie right now, once this wraps up and is recorded, I will do a post to all the Life Pro sessions that I've done. It's not quite up to date. I promise to get working on that today. But whether it is bone density, MS, Crohn's, colitis, there's probably 2 sessions, if not 3, that I've done on absolutely anything you can consider. And if I haven't done a session on it and you'd like me to, just let me know as well. Deanne asks, is Life Pro equipment medical grade? Which equipment? Are you talking vibration plates? If you're talking vibration plates, medical grade is different performance levels. So in the medical world, and I never finished my vibration movement types, oscillating is the main movement type. In the home market, I would refer to them as consumer or home grade, and the frequencies, the speed of the plate is less than medical grade. You're also looking at a different price tag. I have a lot of experience with medical grade vibration plates. They're fantastic, but not everyone can afford the price points with that equipment. And if you are fortunate enough, or perhaps you're dealing with a company or an HMO or something that can facilitate a transaction, and there's 2 types of medical grade vibration plates. There's oscillating, which is the type of movement we discussed today. There is also vertical. Vertical is much more rare than it might have been, let's say 15, 20 years ago. True medical devices on the vertical side are very lacking, and there's a couple different reasons for that. They're not cheap to make. It's a different type of how do you put it, under the hood of the car. There's very different construction in how a plate moves this way versus vertical this way. The third type of movement, which is lateral, which Life Pro and many plates offer, it has less research, less science. There's really no such thing as lots of research in the lateral field. There's some logical things we can associate with it, like increased lymph and balance and stability, but there's no such thing as a lateral medical grade. So it's understanding there's different movement types. In the medical research world, there's not combo machines. So there's not a machine that has 3 or 4 or 5. Those are more features and advantages to mix things up at home. At home, you tend to be using your plate more regularly. Medical grade tends to be more medical grade is also what I would refer to as commercial, high traffic. So if you're putting a vibration plate into a gym and you're going to put 150 people a day on it, I wouldn't put the mini in there. So there's different construction, cost, size, weight. Medical grade oscillating plates, there are some that go upwards of 30 hertz. Hertz is how many times per second a plate is moving. The average Life Pro machine and industry average is probably in the 15 to 16 hertz range, so about half. Medical wise in North America, your entry level is probably about $1,500 US as a starting point. Some of the hospital specific pediatric plates can go upwards of like probably 20, 30 grand in today's world with exchange. So very specific use. If you are using a medical grade or considering one, you don't necessarily need a medical grade plate to get medical benefits. Just like the light therapies and many other devices out there, none of it's all been done. There's lots of indicators and there's logic in the way. I come from about 20 years of hand-on experience, starting with the medical grade. I've been around so long and I'm getting so old. There was no eBay, there was no Amazon when I got into this, and there certainly wasn't a Life Pro. And if I'm supporting people online in using vibration plates, which I do here with Life Pro and in my own world, general consumer, the risks, in my opinion, are different. So if you are dealing with medical grade and you've got an oscillating plate that is capable of 16 hertz or greater, or if you're dealing with a vertical plate that offers 2 millimeters of amplitude or greater. So let me explain that. In the vertical world, I made visual aids today. I'm going to pull this out. And thank you for raising this because there is a difference. And, I don't want you can't spend $200 and have a machine that does the same thing as the $25,000 machine. That's logical. But in a home environment, especially if you're dealing with something medical specific, I highly recommend working with someone experienced like myself or a qualified therapist that knows how to use those types of devices. It's very easy to not only overdo it, but there's different neurological stimulations. There's different load effects when you're dealing with a commercial grade vibration plate. So vertical. See, so the biggest difference in the terminology, I'm trying to get this plate straight. So vertical, you go online right now, and then if you do a search, there's this study that comes up. I don't know who's spending the money on it, but vertical plates are best at 40 hertz for bone density. There's one study that says that. Absolutely. It's a $15,000 Dutch technology, German built. I owned 4 of them in my studio back in the day. What's happened over the last 20 years is these terms there's lots of plates out there calling themselves vertical machines, but they're not really vertical machines. What's happened with vertical machines, the machines from research had about 4 millimeters of amplitude. So each time they moved up and down 4 millimeters, and they go faster. So when you're moving less distance, you can move faster. On oscillating plates, you have much larger amplitudes and they're adjustable. This is where the understanding of how to use it is an advantage once you understand it, but there's more factors you personally can control and manipulate. So you stand wide at max amplitude, anywhere from 8 to 14 millimeters, depending on the plate that you're on. If you bring the feet closer, you can reduce the amount of amplitude to 1-2 millimeters. And it really depends on you and how it feels to you and how tall you are and how much mass you have. It's very much a personal thing. So what's happened in the industry, as these vertical machines came over from Europe, they didn't put them in the hands of qualified people that introduced you to equipment and paid attention and asked what was going on with your body. They put them in shopping malls, not with therapists and trainers. So what happened when they put these big, bad German steel, very loud machines in shopping malls and in gyms, people didn't know what to do with them. So they just stood on them. Yeah, they made them feel good. No harm, no foul. But it wasn't something people could imagine putting in their living room or their spa. So what's happened in the market over time as they've been commercialized and duplicated, pulsation, some of them are referring to it as a vertical or a lineal, but they have very low amplitude. The frequency is accurate. So frequencies on a vertical plate is going to run 30 to 50, maybe 60 hertz times per second. but they've reduced substantially the amount it's moving. And many of the devices that I'm going to have so many people after this, I didn't plan to go on this rant, that say, oh, well, this machine's got 3 millimeters of amplitude. Well, when no one's standing on it, yes. As soon as you add mass to a vertical platform, it takes a little bit of engineering and some really awesome understanding that it needs to be able to push your mass back up. Otherwise, you just kind of get this tickle buzz sensation, which is very much what like these vertical plates being marketed today. LifePro refers to it as pulsation, which I prefer. It's a similar type of movement, but pulsation more accurately describes the feeling. It's not vertical. Vertical plates are like awesome, but they're really mean feeling. They fatigue you in a different way. They're very fast, and you can't get away from the head buzz. Again, it's not harmful, but there's a reason people prefer the oscillating movement. I, as a trainee, prefer oscillating movement because it's more widely accepted and preferred by my members. I had the best of the best vertical by the best of the best pivotal for years in my studio. And my customers were people that used to change my diapers as a kid, so they were very forthcoming. And I like this for certain things and that for certain things. What I've observed over 20 years is there's benefits to both. There absolutely is. But if you are investing in this technology, oscillating is more widely available because it's more preferred. It's less expensive to build. It's just the way that it goes. They are to a degree easier to maintain. They tend to be quieter because you're pivoting versus, pistons in the commercial grade, and just the frequencies are louder because they're faster. It's just the way that they are. And if you have an opportunity to try one physically first, at a friend's house, at Dick's Sporting Goods, hint, there's lots of places you can get on LifePro's plates, but some of these lessons I hope to have instilled in you today will help you navigate your experience and customize it just so it's more pleasant. Sorry about the medical grade rant there, but there's a lot of people making claims, and if anyone is just offering you a one number answer, so yeah, 40 hertz is the best, or 15 hertz is the best, or vertical is best, or oscillating is best. There is no best. What's better, a treadmill or an elliptical? Depends what you're using it for. So they're both exercise machines. They just move you in different ways. Same with the vibration plate. There's different movement types. Back to my plus for a minute, for those of you that are considering or are using the multi-moving machines. Maybe you got 2 movements, maybe you've got 3. They're just a way to further customize your experience, mix things up. But each movement requires its own motor. So a lot of times people say, oh, well, can't I get like a Rumblex that's like 10 pounds so I can put it in my suitcase? No, each movement requires its own motor, its own amount of movement. So if a company says to you, well, our machine is better because it has 3 motors. Well, if it moves 3 way, it has to. It's just the way that they're built. And a powerful motor, more powerful motor, doesn't necessarily mean better performance. It's not about better performance. It's about engineering. And one of the comments I got early on when I started working with LifePro, keep in mind, I've got the Cadillac medical grade, and I know what they sound like and what they feel like, but they're 10 to 15 grand. So with LifePro, what I have found with many of my customers, the fear is less. They're not as scary, for lack of a better term. You're not getting into the realm of frequency where there's some of the neurological stimulation that you may experience with medical grade. So I just want to caution you to make sure you're working with someone that has experience with that, if that's what you're considering, and talk with each of the companies. Most of my support and my families are working with home grade for one reason. They want portability. They want to be able to take it from the living room to the bedroom to the basement to the deck, especially if you're dealing with symptom management. And many of my clients have 2 to 3 machines. One's at the cabin, one's at the office. If it becomes part of your lifestyle and you become experienced like I do, it's your everything that you go to. It just takes a little bit of time and fooling around to figure out what works best for you. And I want you to have fun with it. Okay, so Bernadette says red light therapy belt, okay for severe osteoporosis. Today is not about light therapy. It's about vibration plates. So I kind of asked for today's questions if they could be on task. I will answer them. but I want to make sure that everyone coming today for vibration plate questions kind of gets answered first. And I want to make sure that I know I've already rambled an hour. So I'm just going to back up here and see. So I hope that answered your question. I went way off on a tangent, Deanne, but I just want to make sure that you understand. It really depends on the situation. And if you have more questions, just direct message me on that. Stay off my vibration if my L4-5 is out. I can't say, I can't offer you medical device just based on that information. What I hope to show you today is if you're okay to be bearing your weight and you're okay to be using your plate, is how to modify using it for those types of deficiencies. So if you're, I think you're dealing with a back and spine issue, absolutely, you want to reduce the amount of intensity. Or if you're not to be standing, you're not bearing weight, or you're just getting started and maybe you're a little bit fearful, you can absolutely use it by sitting on a stool and exposing the lower extremities until you're ready to bear weight and progress. There is no contraindication to using a vibration plate, but there is understanding in how to use it and apply it if you are dealing with certain symptoms. I hope that makes sense. Deborah Bryant, how the heck are you? I hope you're doing well. Long time no see. One of my vertical users out there. We're probably due for a check-in. Linda says thanks. Okay, so I do want to go back. There was a red light question here. Where did I see that? I did not mean for you to delete your question, but I am trying to just stay on. No, there it is. Paula is asking, before I get to the red light with Bernadette, Paula is asking, what are the benefits of using the presets 1, 2s, and 3s? Paula, I hope you watched me ramble. And if you have not watched me ramble, it's not a matter of 1, 2, or 3 today. And the way that I coach plates is, first of all, presets are different on every machine based on, what features they have, what type of movements. So that the benefits are more related to what you are personally doing on it. Your presets are a way to change the speeds and the intensities of what you're using on the machine. What feels best to you and what you can tolerate is very much an individual thing. My question would be is, it's not what benefits they're going to provide. What goals are you trying to accomplish by using them? And I wish I could offer you a set it and forget it, like that old chicken machine, the rotisserie back in the day. But it's not that simple. It's the same reason when you go to a gym and you hire a trainer maybe you're working on osteoporosis. Maybe you're looking at losing weight. Maybe you're dealing with rheumatoid arthritis. So often if you're dealing with a condition, there are exercises or stretches that you're supposed to be doing. A plate is simply an environment that makes them more effective, kinder on the body by reducing the amount of impact and substantially reducing the amount of time that you have to spend doing them. So less therapy time and more you time. To Bernadette's red light belt, is it okay for severe osteoporosis? It is okay for severe osteoporosis. So is a vibration plate. When you say, is it okay for severe osteoporosis, what is it with the osteoporosis that you're trying to solve? Are you trying to manage pain? Are you having inflammation, swelling? Long-term, of course, we want to improve the bone density, but that is a long-term benefit. You need to show up consistently and use this regularly to improve the bone and your muscle strength. But if short-term, Paula, you are dealing with pain, inflammation, you're not very active. I deal with a lot of people that have severe osteoporosis because they're paralyzed and they don't have the ability to move. Get a little passionate about this sometimes. You can put your feet on this thing even if you're in a wheelchair and get it moving your legs. Maybe you've got a lift system in your home. Maybe you've got a yoga swing. Maybe you stand with a walker. This is just an environment for those of you that are that poorly degrassed or are at high risk of falling. That's usually another thing, Paula. It makes movement and exercise possible. And whatever you need to do to make yourself feel safe or comfortable, whether it's putting a chair in front of it, maybe it's starting seated. There's lots of ways you can modify and just work with how you feel comfortable. I hope that makes sense. Tina, I hope you watched the session. There is no such thing as a best vibration plate for weight loss and osteoporosis. It depends on what you do on it. So weight loss and osteoporosis, you want to do exercises for weight loss like your squats, your push-ups. The vibration plate just gives you more benefit while you're doing those exercises and reduces the amount of time. Another way that reducing time is a huge advantage, especially if you're dealing with osteoporosis, is less time and movement on those joints. You want to get those muscles to a level of fatigue and exercise the bones so they get stronger and we burn calories. But a lot of times when you're dealing with osteoarthritis or just general arthritis, it may be hard to spend a lot of time. Maybe the joints or the pain is causing you to stop before you can progress. So think of this as kind of that hack that gets you to fatigue faster, reducing time, reducing the risk of inflammation. And while you're on this plate doing your squat and losing the weight and building the bones, it's making you more stable. It's turbo boosting your lymph, your circulation. There's all these, excuse me, side benefits, I'll call them, instead of side effects. So you don't need to do anything specific for the osteoporosis. Just doing regular things on the machine, bearing your weight is the best way to accomplish that. But with the weight loss in there or strength, pushing yourself into some squats early in the day, maybe 2 to 3 minutes of them, pushing those quads and those glutes to a level of fatigue. I went over that earlier in the routine. It doesn't need to be a whole big workout. I want to give you guys hope. And sometimes I know back in the day when I blew my knee and I needed to lose all this weight, as these doctors told me, I used to play a lot of sports, but I'd never exercised for purpose. I wouldn't know what a weight loss program looked like from a lymph program. So the plate for me allowed me, because my knee is still kind of screwed up, I can do the exercises I need to do without my knee quitting out on me first. And at the same time, I'm getting the lymph, the circulation, the balance, the bone density, all those things that are ever so important to a post-50, most post-menopausal woman, or in the middle of, I should say. I hope that makes sense. And I don't want to sound like I'm giving anyone a lecture, but, a lot of times when I get these questions, I know it's because you're struggling, because, if you don't exercise for purpose now, sometimes these programs and these posters that Amazon's trying to sell you with 50, 60 different moves in them, it's just intimidating and it makes you want to not do it at all. So you just stand there because it's easier. You still feel good and you're going to see some benefits, but I want you to progress and just going longer and longer, or just, doing a higher program or standing wider with your feet is not progressing. I want you guys trying to challenge yourself within your range of motion and your ability, if you've got those fitness gains in mind, and work within what you're able to do. Pay attention to those bad knees and hips and whatever you may be dealing with. And maybe that's your quit point, and using it more often starting out, as I said earlier. Who else has questions for me? If you do. First, vibration plate related questions, but if you are incorporating some other therapies, Paula has raised the benefits. No, that was the red light. Bernadette has raised the benefits of red light. I wanted to mention, Bernadette, one of the ways I like to incorporate my WED light. You can't see behind camera here, but I've got a pulley and a system on the wall where I've got the large bio panels, and I'll hang them on the wall to cast upon me while I'm doing my workout, so I can combine that benefit as well. My dogs are running around. They love it. You don't need to stare directly at it. I have it behind me, and I don't wear the glasses because I'm doing my push-ups and that. But I don't have any issues. I just have to, make sure that I'm not staring directly at it like a bug. And sometimes if I got some sciatic issues lately, we've started some yard cleanup, and of course I just go out there and start raking for 3 hours instead of warming up a bit. It's this time of year, if you're getting into seasonal activities, you're using muscle groups that maybe haven't been exercised in the same way, or for those long durations. So, maybe you're doing a couple 3 minutes on the machine as a warm up before you head out, and you're doing a couple minutes. This time of year, I like incorporating it into smaller, more digestible things throughout the course of my day as my body tells me. Maybe I'm doing sitting on it and doing a couple minutes massage before I go to bed. There's lots of ways you can incorporate it. And I want you, with the controls I was trying to explain today, and especially in oscillating, because there's just a little bit more to understand. But you can absolutely manipulate your experience for your situation. There's very, very rarely a situation where I can't help you modify based on something that you may be dealing with. And if you've had a recent injury or surgery, please do speak with your doctor. But instead of asking when you can use your vibration plate, you want to ask questions more like, when am I okay to resume weight-bearing activities, or when am I okay, to pick up my activity levels? And they should be giving you guidance as far as, how much intensity, should you be avoiding weights, long durations, maybe if you're dealing with some spinal issues, there's certain stretches that you should be avoiding. Understand those factors first, and recognize that the plate is just an environment to do them upon to get more benefit and stress your body out a little less than you would be on the floor. So, okay, I've probably overstayed my welcome in your home at this point. I want to thank you very much for joining me. What I would like you to do, if you are watching this on a recorded basis, or maybe you would just, I've rambled you to sleep or too much at this point, and you think of something after the fact, please tag me at Debby with a Y throughout the evening tomorrow, and I will absolutely be available to answer those questions. If you are dealing with something severe and you're fearful still after sort of understanding what I've gone through today, and don't necessarily want to talk about it publicly, please just feel free to direct message me. But if you leave a comment on the thread, make sure that you're over in the Life Pro VIP group for the main lives. That's where I'll see your comments. If you're on the VIP group right now, come to the main Life Pro page. If you have posted me a question and I haven't answered it and you think I'm ignoring you, I only see the comments coming through from the main Life Pro page. So I'll give you a minute to pop over there while I wrap up my ramble. I will drop my link to all my sessions that I've done here in the group, and I'm going to keep the momentum going. I will be doing this the first Saturday of every month, at least for the next few months. I like later. I think more of you are available, and I enjoy questions. So bring your questions next time. Today was easy. Thank you for bringing your questions. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Bernadette. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Katie. I know I've repeated names here at this point. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Roosevelt. Thank you, Nancy, Pam, and Restream for bringing this service to you today. Again, leave your questions for me. And if you have session ideas or things that you want to talk about, I do sessions typically on Monday, regularly on Life Pro's pages, with the exception of whatever this week falls in. I'll be live on Saturdays going forward, first Saturday of each month. Thank you for joining me, and I appreciate you joining me. Thank you, Nancy. Nice to see you as well. Have a great rest of your weekend, guys. Don't work too hard.